Okay, so it should be deployed to the web. This criteria, if I go on render, you see that I have this this URL, and if I then run this URL and slash GraphQL, it will take me to the live version. So it's live, and it's running. So now the second one is OAuth. Okay, so to have the OAuth running, so if you check now, I can pretty much now to cover as well before I even move forward. You see that documentation for the API. For that, because I'm using GraphQL, I have in this corner here docs. This is where my documentation is. So if we then go to query, then I say query, then I'll say root query. What do I have there? I have get all users. So if I then say get all users like that, and I want it to return the name and the email, name and email. So if I run that, it should bring me the names within my database as shown. Let's see. I'm trying to open Canvas a bit. The cluster. Okay. Right, so I'm inside now. If I go to my users, you'll see that I have all these names. I just want to delete this last one. Flag for deletion. Yes, delete. So now if I run that query, I want this last one to go. Now it's gone. Alright, so I've restricted access to certain features that you can do if you're not logged in, and that if you go to my code, you will see that I have within my services, this is the function that checks to see if you're authenticated. If then in my resolver, if you look at the update user, I run the auth check, and then in my delete, I run the auth check. So you can't delete or update user if you're not authenticated, but otherwise you can get a user, you can get all users as I just done, and you can also create a user without being authenticated. So let's deal with the whole thing of authentication. If you look through my I have passport. I've basically have I used Google rather than GitHub, and I have the whole logic for that for my auth in a different file. Then now within and then now for my auth here, you see that if you say auth, then Google, then click, it should take you to, okay, I'm assuming that it's already logged in. Let's see. Okay, I was just trying to see why it keeps on logging me automatically without me. So if I say auth slash Google like that, it should then take me to this page for authentication. Then if I click on that, it's going to ask me to log in. Now let's see. Now it's asking me to verify my login. So I do have my phone. Okay, and the code is set. Now let's log it in and see. We didn't have that user in our database here, so OAuth is working. So now if I come to my database and if I refresh, I should be able to see McDonald at the bottom right there. Now even if you look into my console, you see that I would have been created. Alright, so now in my redirect of my OAuth, if you come to my routes or redirect, I've redirected it to GraphQL, where you can be able to continue and perform your different queries that you want. So I've shown you the database. It's running well, and I've just created this new user via OAuth. Now HTTP request, because what happens is that when you come through my this app, I'm using GraphQL. GraphQL use mostly post, HTTP post, so all my queries are run through the post. But however, if I do /auth, the /auth it's the request that you run for authentication, and it goes into my routes where the authentication happens. This is for the Google auth, and this is for the redirect. But if you go to my main app, you see that if you do /GraphQL, then it takes you to the GraphQL that allows you to run all your queries. So that's covered the HTTP request. Now API documentation, as I mentioned earlier on, regarding to documentation, if you come through here, you see that I have docs. This is where all the documentation happens. For mutation, it shows you here the different mutations that are there. For the queries, it shows you the get user, login, and get a user. So those are the different documentations that you can then look at. You can then look at, say, for example, mutation. Maybe you want to delete a user, you have to provide an ID. If you want to create a post, you create the title string, the content, and the image URL. For creating a user, you say you run the function create user input, then you supply the data that it's requested to continue. Now for data validation and error handling, if you go, let's say you're not using OAuth, if you're creating using the create user function, if I go to my resolvers, you see that I'm handling it very, very swiftly here. So I have the create user. Now to validate, we validate the email. I'm using here a third package to do all my validation. I'm using validator. So that's the one that validates my email. It validates my password, and then for each error that we have, I've created an error array that I feed into all the errors that are coming through, and then it's then displayed all the errors that we're dealing with. So that's what handles my data validation and my error handling. And then I'm using GraphQL as you noticed here to run all my queries, to run all my interactions. So that's what I'm using here. So I didn't go for TypeScript because that needed extra time, but I've deployed it to the web. I'm using OAuth. I have the database running, the HTTP request is running, API documentation. I'm using GraphQL GUI for that. Data validation, as you noticed, I'm using validate, the third package, and I'm handling my errors by throwing them into an array. So that should do it for this one. Cheers.